Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is Mailbag. What is Mailbag? Well, I'm glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we take the second half of the show to take live comments and questions from the people watching the show live. But what happens if you're one of those people who watches the show one of the other 22 hours during the day? If you want to get a comment or question read by myself or Rob, or sometimes both of us, then you can use the tip link that's down in the description of this video or enter it in manually at www.streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question read on Mailbag if we deem your comment or question appropriate to be used on Mailbag. And of course, you'll be supporting the channel at the same time, and all of us involved with the John Campea channel, thank you guys so much for your support. Okay, guys, we've got a whole bunch of you that have used that link and sent in some questions, so let's get right to it, shall we? And we're going to get things started off here with Funny You Slapped writes, one of two. Hey, guys. I did a rewatch of Man of Steel and still not a big fan. After he discovered his power, you're telling me he did not try to learn and control to see what his power limit is and prevent outbursts. Jonathan Kent would be the first person to help him do that. Oh, you're dead wrong about that. Absolutely dead wrong about that. Anyway, also, any kid would hide from their parent, learn and take advantage of their power on their own. The idea that when Zod arrived, by the way, you're dead wrong about that too. The idea that when Zod arrived, he still acted kind of new is hard to believe. He had years to learn them. Again, that's a fundamental misunderstanding of the movie as a whole. And I don't buy the fact that a 30-year-old man lived on Earth his whole life, can acted surprised with how human act and behave. I am well older than 30 years old, and I am still always surprised by how humanity can act and behave. At any rate, I mean, TVs and internet were around. There are a lot of bad in humanity, yes, but good things are recorded too. Okay, so let me start with this. I think there is, in my personal opinion, and by the way, Man of Steel didn't work for you, and that's totally cool. All film is subjective. It hits us all in different ways. Certain things work for us, certain things don't work for us, and that's totally cool. I'm sure there's a million different movies we have different opinions on, and that's part of the great thing about being movie fans together, is that we have different experiences and different opinions. So thank you for sharing your perspective. Now, since you're asking me, let me address that. See, I personally think that represents a fundamental misunderstanding of the movie. Like, first of all, it kind of reminds, like, how would a kid who discovers he's actually an alien from another planet sent in a life pod to Earth after their homeworld was destroyed and basically has kind of like the power of the gods when he arrives? How would that kid act? The reality is you have no idea, nor do I, how that kid would act. You know why? Because it's never happened. It's never happened. All due respect to alien conspiracy theorists out there, but it's never happened. So you have no idea how that individual would act or react, and neither do I. It reminds me of the argument when people say, oh, the way the Ezra Miller Flash runs is stupid. That's not how you run fast. And I always want to ask them, really, pray tell. Do tell me who somebody or how somebody who runs at the speed of light runs. Show me some examples on YouTube about different individuals who've run the speed of light and their proper running technique. Oh, there is no record of that? Really? So what you're saying is you don't know how somebody who would run at the speed of light would have to run. So that kind of reminds me of this. Listen, the movie did a great job of kind of exhibiting that this kid, this young Clark Kent, was often in anguish and suffering as a result of his abilities, often just using everything he could to just maintain control and keep things quiet and whatever. And he was constantly being taught by his father that they have to keep whatever it is he is under wraps until the time comes that he is ready and that the world is ready. So I respectfully, wholeheartedly disagree and think you're dead wrong. We say Jonathan Kent would have been showing him how to test his limits and what he can do. Nah, if you watch the movie and understand Jonathan Kent in that, his whole idea was, listen, let's keep a lid on everything. You're not ready. The world's not ready. We'll figure this out when the time is right and we can get some answers. And I think if you look at the character development of both Jonathan Kent and Clark Kent in that becomes pretty clear. And then, yes, when it comes time near the end of the movie and Clark is trying to figure out, how do I deal with humanity on this level? Again, show me an example of somebody who has had to face that particular dilemma. There's never been happened because it's science fiction. It's never happened. So he's like, yeah, I don't know how humanity would react. I don't know if I can trust humanity. And quite frankly, as an Earth-born individual myself, I wouldn't know if I could trust humanity on that as well. So while I completely respect Funny You Slapped, and I actually really like that username too, I completely respect that for you, that didn't work and it hit you a certain way. I fundamentally disagree with you. And that's cool. We're allowed to disagree. This is the fun part about being movie fans, I mean. So thanks for sharing your perspective on that. And I hope I made my position on it a little bit clear as well. Thanks for sending that in, man. All right, let's go on here. Miss My Shot writes, hey guys, Moon Knight theory, hear me out. We haven't seen Mark interact with Arthur. What if Arthur was the original? Actually, we did see Mark interact with Arthur in episode 3. Anyway, I haven't seen Mark interact with Arthur. What if Arthur was the original Avatar, created a real version of himself in Mark to protect the people in his old life and become Moon Knight full time? And when everyone in Arthur's life dies, Mark gets to live a real life of his own with a different face. That's when he met Layla. When Arthur was corrupted, Khonshu needs a new avatar and went to Mark to protect Layla. Mark asked Khonshu to create Steven, similar to Arthur's deal, but Khonshu demanded that they are the same body so that they won't repeat what happens with Arthur. Far-fetched, far-reach, I know, thoughts. Yeah, I think especially, I wonder if you might have sent this in. Well, no, it's Thursday. I think you sent this in after episode 3. I really think the events of episode 3 kind of show that that's not how this kind of wrote out. I think this is one of those situations where the easiest answer is probably the correct one. That Arthur really is just simply telling the truth. He was Khonshu's previous avatar. And, you know, Rob, I can't remember if he said it on the show, but it might have been off air. Rob and I were talking about this. Rob had a really good theory, too, that what if Arthur was snapped away, comes back after the snap, and realizes that Khonshu has a new avatar, and he just, in a search for meaning, whatever, just drawn to Amit, finds that whatever the scrap of power that Amit has to power his staff and all that kind of stuff. I mean, again, I don't know. This is all wild speculation as well. But no, I don't believe the theory that Arthur is also a part, all wrapped up in the same thing of Mark and Steven and stuff like that. So, hey, you may not be wrong. We're going to find out. There's only 3 episodes left. Let's see if you're right about that. But personally, I don't buy into the theory myself. But let's see if you're onto something a little bit later. All right, next up. Remember Bulldog writes, part 1. To me, one of the most intriguing things about Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, Wanda, a villain, we've never seen an Avenger become a heel. She won't be your traditional villain because what she's doing, a lot of people are going to support her. I don't think a lot of people are going to support her. And this will be the first MCU project where Wanda is the Scarlet Witch and she has full control of her power and abilities. So it's going to be great to see. Okay, let's start with part 2 of that. I'm not convinced that we're going to see Wanda who has complete control of her powers and abilities at this point. Remember, we're only talking about, I think, maybe a matter of a year separated from when Wanda even discovered that she was the Scarlet Witch and got her hands on the Darkhold. So while I think we are going to see a more powerful version of Wanda we've ever seen, I do not think we are yet going to see a Wanda or a Scarlet Witch that has full control of those powers and abilities quite yet. Also, remember, while I believe personally that we are about to see Wanda be the big bad guy, it may not be, right? I mean, that's what I think is going to happen. Either our Wanda or another Wanda from another part of the multiverse or whatever, but Wanda, some Wanda, is going to be the villain of the movie. At least that's my guess, but we don't know that for sure. And if it is Wanda that's the villain of the film, it may not be our version of Wanda. Right now, I kind of lean towards the idea that it is our Wanda who ultimately, like a lot of classic supervillain origin stories, has a righteous goal. She wants to find her kids. and is willing to do anything to do it. Like kind of like a Mr. Freeze, right? He wants to save his wife, a righteous goal, but he's willing to do anything, however bad or evil or whatever, hurt whoever he's got to hurt to achieve that goal. And maybe that's what we get to with Wanda. Now, I don't know for sure. We'll find out, though. I'm so excited. Multiverse of Madness is now just a couple of weeks away, guys. All right, next up, we got Uzi Khan, who writes in, oh my gosh, sends in like a $75 tip. Thank you so much, Uzi, for supporting our channel on that level, man. That's extremely generous. Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate that. And Uzi writes in, greetings, John. Great show. Keep it up. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. In a recent interview with director Colin Trevorrow for his upcoming blockbuster Jurassic World Dominion, he stated that the film took inspiration from the film The Joker. What are your thoughts on this? You know, here's an interesting thing. A bunch of people have written into me to ask, what do you think about Colin Trevorrow saying he's like kind of making a comparison and taking influence from The Joker? But I have no idea what that means. Like maybe once we see the movie, like in what way did it take influence from the Joker? Does it take influence in the way that it's using the situational narrative of dinosaurs in our world to really address real world issues we may have? Like in Joker, Joker was a movie that took this comic book character, the Joker, but they used that as a way of addressing how, sociological discrepancies between classes in our society, to address how we look at and address mental health in our society. You know, so when he says he compares it to the Joker, is that what he means? That he's using the narrative of dinosaurs to address other real world issues that we have? When he talks about the Joker, are we talking about something or somebody that slowly goes a little bit mad and who delves into their own psychosis? When he talks about Jurassic Park taking influence from Joker, are they talking about having a real balanced mixture of excitement yet social horror? So that's the thing. Without really knowing exactly what Colin Trevorrow means by took influence from Joker, since that could mean 1,000 different things, it's really difficult, nigh impossible, for me to formulate an opinion about what do I think about that. Well, since I have no idea what he means by it, I really don't have an opinion about it. You know what I'm saying? Because I just don't know. It could be anything. I do know this. I'm very excited for this movie. I like all the Jurassic World movies so far. Obviously none of them has been as good as the original Jurassic Park, but the trailers for this have looked fantastic. I saw another like 2.5 minute kind of preview for it today where they go a little bit behind the scenes talking about the original cast with the new cast all working together. I'm very, very excited about that. I'm super excited that the original like Laura Dern, Sam Neill, Jeff Goldblum, that they're all back and they're all main characters in this one, working with Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard as well. I've got a lot of reason to be excited for this. Super, super excited for it, actually. But again, I have no opinion about Colin Trevorrow saying that it took some influence from Joker when, again, that could mean anything, and I really don't know what it means, unfortunately. Anyway, Uzi, thank you again so much for writing that in. Thank you for tipping that much and supporting our channel on that level, man. Appreciate it very, very much. All right. Next up, we've got Zayed Rutkowski, who writes, I'm sure I'm butchering your name, dude, but I'll try my best. All right. Hey, John and crew. Greetings from Alberta, Canada. I love Alberta. Spent a lot of time there. I was just going through your channel and couldn't find a definitive The Green Knight review. It's my favorite movie of at least the past 5 years, and was wondering your guys' thoughts on it. Bring on the filthy. Yeah, we never did do a review of it because I never saw it until a month or 2 months after it came out. Like I was late to the party for The Green Knight, and I kind of have a rule. If I don't see a movie within the first 2 or 3 days of it opening, I don't do a review for it, because at that point, there's no point in doing a review for it. Because anybody looking for a review of that movie would have already found one. You know what I mean? That being said, we have spoken about The Green Knight, though, several times. I like it very much. As a matter of fact, here on this channel, we have a new show called Designing Hollywood. That's produced by the Designing Hollywood people, which is executive produced by Martika Ibarra and the legendary, iconic Hollywood costume designer Marilyn Vance. And we now are the distributors for that show. It's now on the John Campea YouTube channel. You can find it down below. And we have Robert Meyer Burnett doing the hosting for it. He does a great job hosting for it. And we actually had the designer of the Green Knight on one of the episodes. And I highly, highly, highly encourage you to go down and check that out. I love the movie. Now, I know there was some mixed reaction to it because it is a very arty kind of film. Actually, the original ballad of it is actually pretty arty as well. I thought Dev Patel, I'm no longer surprised by Dev Patel because Dev Patel has just developed into a fabulous actor. Really, really good. I love the original legend and story of the Green Knight anyway. It's got twists and turns, including, kind of that wild ending. So yeah, I like the movie very, very much. And we have talked about it a few times. Thanks for writing in about it, man. All right. Next up, we got Superman from Krypton writes, "Hey, John, you mentioned that the trailers, let me try this again. You mentioned that the trailers before Sonic 2 were reduced from 25 minutes to 15 minutes. I noticed this too with Sonic 2 and the bad guys at Cineworld in the UK. Interesting. Could the age rating for the trailers and the film be the reason, or are cinemas trying to mess with us?" All right, thanks a lot for writing that in. So for those of you who don't know what Superman from Krypton is talking about, for years, as a big proponent of the movie-going experience, as somebody who loves going to the movies, as someone who truly believes the only real way to watch a movie is the way it was intended to be seen by the filmmakers on the big screen in a movie theater, I'm totally into that. But for the last number of years, I've been perpetually pissed off at the notion that they advertise the movie starts at 7, but it really starts at 7:30, because even though you paid premium price for a movie ticket, you got to sit through a half hour of commercials. And that's what movie trailers are. They're commercials. I love movie trailers. They're great commercials, but they're commercials nonetheless. And then once the commercials are done, they got to play you another commercial about going and buying a soda at the confection. Then they got to run another commercial telling you to sign up for their movie membership at their thing. And then if you're at AMC, they got to show you another commercial of freaking, even heartbreak feels good in a place like this, like with Nicole Kidman. I love Nicole Kidman, but I'm so sick and tired of seeing that ad. And then finally the thing starts. To wit, a lot of people who don't get it will say, "Well, just go late then, John. Why not just go late? It starts late, so you have to go late." Well, here's the problem. I did go late for Sonic 2. And I walked into the movie theater. I think the movie we were watching started at like 5, if I'm remembering it right. And we got there. I got in line to get my concession stuff and went into the theater to grab our seats. I went to the concession line to get our stuff. And I walked into the theater at 20 after 5, a good 8, 9, 10 minutes before the trailers are normally done. But guess what? The movie had already started. I missed the first scene of the movie. And this is one of the big problems with this, because a lot of people say, "Well, just go late." But when the movie theaters are going to play around with it like that, this is them manipulating you. See, everybody, you better come on time for the movie and sit through all the commercials we're going to show you, or else you might miss some of one movie, because if we decide to start the movie a little bit closer to on time, you're going to miss some of the movie. And it's manipulation, and it really pisses me off. So you see, John, just go late isn't an answer. Because I did, and I didn't even go in that late. I still went in 10 minutes early, and I missed the first scene of the movie. Now, one of the things I hadn't considered, though, Superman from Krypton, that you're bringing up here is actually a pretty good thought, is what if they do shorten it for kids' movies? Now, I haven't thought about this, but you might be right, because if they did it for Sonic Where You Are Too and for the bad guys, what could be at play here is that they're understanding that parents are bringing children, and children, it's hard to keep them settled for too long. Don't make them sit through a half hour of trailers. Maybe that's the case. Pretty smart, actually, if that's the case. But again, it just highlights that it shouldn't be 25 minutes to a half hour of trailers anyway. It never should be. Not unless you're showing us a free movie. If you're going to show me a free movie, That's fine. Go ahead. Show as many trailers as you want because you're showing me a free movie. But if I'm paying premium price for a ticket or I'm paying for my membership to be there, don't show me 30 minutes of ads, for heaven's sakes. That really, really bothers me, Superman. All right, next up, we've got Costanza. Or is this not Costanza? This Constanza? Anyway, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. Sorry, dude. Someone pointed out to me that the Riddler basically won in the Batman. No, he won the first couple of rounds, but he didn't win in the Batman. I love the movie, but really all Batman was able to do was stop a few people from being shot by cosplayers. No, it's far more serious than that. Remember, those guys were going to slaughter dozens, if not hundreds, of people. They didn't just go there to shoot one person. There was a gaggle of those guys there with high-powered firearms and weapons, and they were just going to shoot a whole ton of people. So to say all they did was save a bunch of people's lives, I think that's missing the point of the movie a little bit. Yeah, listen, did Riddler kill the 3 or 4 guys that he personally targeted? Yes. Was he able to cause major damage to the city as a result of the busting the floodgates? Yeah. But the end game of it was to gather all those people in that arena so that his guys could just, like shooting fish in a barrel, slaughter a ton of people. Because the whole city deserved judgment, right? Including the new mayor. And so, yeah, Riddler won the first few rounds. Yes, but at the end of the day, Batman stopped the end game and saved a lot of people's lives. And that, I think, completely refutes this notion that Riddler ultimately won. No, he didn't. He got in the first few shots. He won the first couple of rounds. But at the end of the day, he was stopped. His ultimate plan was stopped, and that's kind of the key to the Batman, I think, at any rate. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, man. All right, next up. James writes, Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless were the showrunners and writers of Lost in Space, so they obviously are talented writers. Oh, I don't think that's obvious at all. They developed the show, but like Matt Sazama and Burke, they only wrote 7 out of all the seasons. They wrote like 7 of the episodes. And depending on who you ask, Lost in Space isn't that great of a show. Like, I watched the first season and I didn't mind it, but I wasn't motivated to watch the other seasons. So, I mean, and I'm only one viewer. I'm one isolated audience member, but it didn't do all that much for me. It couldn't even get me back to watch the second season. So anyway, I'm sure some people think it's great and that's awesome. But anyway, I don't think that one thing that has mediocre reception proves that they are talented writers. So I'll disagree with you on that, James. So they are obviously talented writers. That's not obvious at all. I wonder what goes wrong with their movies. I really liked Morbius, by the way. Yeah, I mean, look, they've got one thing on their resume that isn't terrible. But then they have Gods of Egypt. And they have Dracula Untold. And they have The Last Witch Hunter. Like, garbage. One thing that's not so bad, garbage. Personally, I think that's a optimistic way of appraising the situation, James. But hey, listen, if you really love Lost in Space, then that's great. And that definitely gives it higher marks for you. But for me, and I think for a bunch of people, and I'm sure there are a lot of other people who liked it a lot as well, but I also know there's a bunch of people who thought it was okay. And when your ranking is garbage, okay, garbage, I got to disagree with you when you say, obviously they are talented writers. I don't think so at all. But that's just me, man. You have your perspective of it, and I respect your perspective. Your perspective is no better or worse than mine, but I have a bit of a different one. But thank you for sharing your perspective, man. That's what this show is for. Sharing different perspectives, and I'm glad you shared yours, man. All right. Next up, Josiah writes, my understanding has been that Multiverse of Madness was going to conclude this story arc. However, I'm now wondering, could this just be the beginning of the story? What if Strange truly, finally, opens the multiverse and closing it isn't an option? I really don't think they will. And I will tell you this, if they do, I'm going to start losing interest in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm going to start losing interest in it. Because multiverse ultimately means nothing matters. Nothing matters in any of the movies anymore. Spider-Man dies, no problem. There's 15 other Spider-Men that look just like him. We can bring in that Spider-Man. You know, Doctor Strange dies, don't worry. There are 18 more of them. 7 of them look and act just like him. Some of them have slightly different looks, but it's all that. There are literally, the universe is destroyed. No problem. We'll just start telling the story of the next universe over. That's practically identical to ours. The idea of multiverse and oftentimes time travel completely removes any stakes from any story. Nothing matters. Nothing matters. So it's cool if you want to tell some multiversal stories, because you can tell some that are interesting if you keep them finite and limited, like Spider-Man No Way Home. But I really believe that, and I really hope that Multiverse of Madness ends with Doctor Strange sealing up the multiverse, like rebuilding those walls that keep them all separate from each other. Because at this point, it just kind of feels like nothing matters. Nothing in these movies matter whatsoever. So I think this could be an exciting, fantastic, awesome movie about Doctor Strange trying to solve the problem of the multiverse. But if they just like open it up, and now every movie is a multiverse movie, it's I can only speak for myself. I'm going to get real bored, real tired, real fast, because there will be no real stakes, real consequences, real threat, real danger. None of it. Because, oh no, that bus for school children died. Oh, well, you know, there's another universe where they all survived, and we're going to bring them in. See, everybody's back. Everybody's fine. It's just no danger, no stakes, no nothing. It was just get real tired, real fast. But anyway, that's just my thing. So listen, in Kevin Feige, I trust, but that's kind of why I really believe that this has all been building up to the real danger that the multiverse poses, and Doctor Strange is going to fix it. At least that's how I hope they're going to do it. All right. Next up, we've got the Green Ranger, who writes, one of two. John, I have to correct something you said on the April 12th show. That was yesterday's show, I think. It's about Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless. They came up with the Power Rangers in 2017 story with 2 other people, but they did not write it. Power Rangers was written by Academy Award nominated writer John Campea, who wrote Real Steel. You cannot give Sazama and Sharpless credit for writing that film. They did, however, write the anti-masterpiece, The Last Witch Hunter. It's shocking that these guys are crafting the Sony Spider-Man universe. Well, okay. Little bit of semantics here, okay? Little bit of semantics. They are writers on it. Now, look, you can be called a writer of a film, but that can then break down into a couple of different pieces. For example, you can say I starred in a movie. Well, you could be a lead, or you could be a supporting, or you could be a background, right? Like saying you were in a movie, great, but that could mean different things. When, for instance, IMDb will say writer. You are a writer of the film. But then there are 2 different distinctions that they mean for people that they call writer. One is screenplay by, and the other is story by. And IMDb will credit you as a writer for either of those. Actually, give me a second here. Let me pull this up for a moment. Let's look at a movie that we were just talking about a minute ago, a movie that is near and dear to my heart, Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, most underrated comic book film of all time. All right, let's take a look at this. When you go under their director, Zack Snyder, writers, David Goyer, Christopher Nolan, Jerry Siegel gets a writer's credit. Now, look how it makes a distinction. Writers, David S. Goyer actually wrote the screenplay. Okay, so he's the one who fleshed out and wrote out the screenplay. But Christopher Nolan is credited for story. Jerry Siegel is credited as created by, so even he gets a written by thing. So Christopher Nolan gets a writer's credit. So when you say that Sazama is a writer on the Power Rangers, that is accurate. it's not necessarily the actor says that he penned and fleshed out the screenplay, but him and his partner came up with the outline and the basic idea of here's what the story will be. So this will happen, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen, and this happen. Okay, now give that to screenwriter. Here's all the things that got to happen. Now flesh it out and write the screenplay. Go. Now the screenplay writer to me is the more important job, but they are both considered writers. To the bigger part of your question, how do these guys keep getting jobs? I have no idea. I honestly, at this point, have no idea. I mean, they produce so much crap. It's just unbelievable that Sony continues to give them jobs like that. All right. Thanks for writing that in, Green Ranger. Next up, we got Steven Stranger Things who writes, hey, John/Rob, obviously it's just me today. The Back to the Future trilogy is one of my favorites. I think it is for a lot of people. Any thoughts of a movie club for Back to the Future after Lord of the Rings? Love the show. Guys. All right. Thanks a lot for that. Yes. Probably not Back to the Future 2 and definitely not Back to the Future 3, but the original Back to the Future, I'd say sometime within the first 2 years of us doing this show, we will do a Back to the Future. It's such a beloved movie. It's such a special film and everybody knows it and everybody loves it. So yes, I would say definitely at some point we will do a Back to the Future, not the whole trilogy, mind you, but definitely the first one. All right. Kylo Ken writes, hey, John and Rob, obviously just me today. I haven't heard you guys mention it, but have you watched Guardians of Justice on Netflix? Frankly, Kylo, to be honest with you, I've never even heard of it. It's a riff on the DC universe with Marvelous Man, Superman, Nighthawk, Batman, etc. It's very eclectic. Just wondering what your thoughts are on the show. Like I said, Kylo, unfortunately, Netflix is the worst network in the world for promoting their own material. I have never even heard of the Guardians of Justice, so unfortunately, I can't give you any thoughts on the show on that. But hey, listen, if you guys are watching and you've heard of this show that Kylo's talking about, throw your thoughts in the comments below and let us know what you think about this show. Is it one that I should be watching? Let me know. All right, next up. Goon Knight, instead of Moon Knight, writes, regarding Strange 2, why are we assuming that surprises equals cameos? We're not making that assumption. We're not making that. Well, I mean, so we'll go into that in a second. I don't remember the surprises in Infinity War and Endgame being cameos, thinking more like Cap summoning Mjolnir, Tony dying, Avengers losing to Thanos, causing a blip. Yeah, no, we're there. I think when we talk about the surprises coming in this movie, narratively, like what you're talking about, Cap summoning Mjolnir, that's a specific event that happens narratively. Tony dying, that's a specific event that happens narratively. We can't begin to take guesses at what's going to happen narratively in the movie when we haven't even started watching it yet. So we're definitely not just assuming that surprises only equals cameos, but it definitely will mean some. Because we already saw in one of the trailers that Patrick Stewart pops up, right? This is a multiversal movie. We know that there are going to be surprise people popping up. How many and to what degree, we don't know that yet. So, no, we have not been assuming that any surprises only means cameos. Not at all. We haven't assumed that at all. But I think everybody would agree that a good number of the surprises in this will be cameos. Appearances, certain characters popping up and appearing that will be a shock and a surprise to a lot of people. There will be other shocks and surprises that are narrative-based. Absolutely there will be. But yeah, you'd have to have not been paying close attention to not also know that some of these surprises, maybe a good number of them, maybe a certain number of them, will definitely also be cameos as well. All right, thanks for bringing that up, Goon Knight. I love that username. All right, next up. John Martin writes, y'all mentioned Ray Stevenson, and it reminded me, I wanted to mention S.S. Rajamouli's new action epic RRR, the #1 movie out of India, and best action movie I've seen since No Way Home. So glad I caught it in theaters. All 3 hours, never bored or slowed down. I've had a bunch of people tell me about it. I've never did see it. You know who else told me about it? After I went to go see my screening of Ambulance, Chris Gore, you remember him from G4, and he was on Movie Talk with us a few times. Chris Gore was there. We ran into each other. And we ended up talking for like 45 minutes afterwards. But he said, John, have you seen Triple R yet? Like RRR? And I said, no. And he loved it. He was like, it's really, really good, man. You should check it out. So at some point, I'm gonna have to check this out because I've had a number of people recommend it to me, John. All right, next up. Devin Meehan writes, one of two. Hey, John and or Rob, just me today. I came up with a new theory for Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, with the film already slated to be one of the biggest Marvel films yet and or in general. And along with CinemaCon saying it'll have more big surprises than Endgame. No, CinemaCon didn't say that. Someone connected to a project let me know it's not going to be playing at CinemaCon, and that it was going to have bigger surprises than Endgame, No Way Home, and Infinity War altogether. But it wasn't CinemaCon that told me that, just to be clear about that. Combined, not putting a dollar value on it, but I bet that Doctor Strange 2, with any and all cameos bound to show up, that this will be an Avengers 4.5, completely disagree, will be an Avengers 4.5 preparing us for an event bigger to come, like Cap, Civil War, leading into Endgame, fighting, then working as a team. No, I don't buy that at all. Listen, if you try to compare this to Captain America Civil War, which some people, I believe, erroneously refer to as Avengers 2.5, like, yeah, there were a lot of characters in it. Every movie have a lot of characters in it. But Captain America Civil War was definitively a Captain America movie. Like, the whole movie surrounds him. It's from his perspective, just like a lot of other movies are. But you knew going in that this was going to have Iron Man, it was going to have Black Widow, and it was going to have War Machine, and it was going to have Vision, and it was going to have Falcon, and it was going to have Ant-Man, and it was going to have, like, this is all stuff that was part of it. I don't for a second believe that this is going to be an Avengers 4.5. I don't believe we're going to see like 8 of the Avengers in this movie, like we did in Captain America Civil War. Actually, it was more like 10 of them in that one. So I don't agree, but it ain't impossible. They could do it. Let's see what happens when we actually see the movie, Devin. Thanks for sharing your theory with us, man. All right, next up. Connor Thorne writes, do you guys think we could see a good version of a villain on the Illuminati in Doctor Strange 2? I do. I think there's a possibility we see a Michael B. Jordan, Eric Killmonger from another universe, that he became Black Panther and is actually not a psychopathic, genocidal maniac. Like a good guy, Michael Jordan, Killmonger, who becomes Black Panther. I'm not saying that will happen, but since I believe Black Panther will be on this Illuminati council, and since we know it's not going to be Chadwick Boseman, I think it's a good chance it's probably Michael B. Jordan, a Killmonger, but a universe where Killmonger, again, isn't a genocidal, murderous psychopath. All right, next up. Alex Finn writes, hello from Wales. Multiverse of Madness cameos on Tuesday's show had me shouting yes at my screen like an idiot. One I haven't heard yet, Natalie Portman's Thor. Nah, that's not going to happen. Could the plot of Love and Thunder be born of the multiverse? No, I don't think there's anything suggesting these two movies are connected. May be why we haven't had a trailer yet. Keep up the filthy. No, I really don't think so. Besides, the toys have showed us that Jane comes in. We're going to see in Thor Love and Thunder that Jane comes into possession of the reforged Mjolnir. Because remember, we've seen images of Mjolnir, and it's like 1,000 pieces. Because remember, Hela crushed Mjolnir, blew it into 1,000 bits. Well, somebody's reforged it, even though you can see it was clearly being stuck together by some kind of super glue, whatever. But that Jane comes into possession of Mjolnir and becomes Mighty Thor. Right? That's going to happen in the movie of Thor Love and Thunder. It's not happening beforehand or off screen or anything like that. So no, I don't believe there's going to be any connection there at all, Alex. At least I don't think so. You never know. We'll see what happens. All right. Thanks for writing that in, man. Next up, Dr. Nova writes, John says that Rob's favorite Star Trek movie means he thinks it's the best. Let me try this again. John says that Rob's favorite Star Trek movie means he thinks it's the best. It makes no sense. Rob said that it wasn't. However, the statement Star Trek Wrath of Khan is better than my favorite Star Trek movie is as subjective as anything else. I mean, yeah, well, first of all, look, all film is subjective. Absolutely. And how one film hits you and what that means to you and how it hits you is an individual experience unique to yourself. Absolutely. However, what is also subjective is food, right? There's a reason not everybody on the planet thinks strawberry ice cream is the best ice cream, because we all have different tastes. We all like or prefer different things. Certain things we don't enjoy, certain things we do, right? My whole thing has been this. I said this a while ago, that for many, 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 many years, almost my entire adult life, I have bought into this idea until recently. But I have, like everybody else, I've bought into this idea that I can have a favorite movie, but that's not necessarily what I think is the best movie. But movies are experiential events. They are experiential experiences. I mean, you would think me mad if you put out in front of me 5 slices of pizza and they're all from different places and say, take a couple of bites out of each one and tell me which one you like the most. Well, if I picked up pizza slice number 4 and I said, oh, that's the one I like the most. Excellent, you would say. But if I then said, but I think number 1's the best one, you would look at me like I'm crazy. You'd say, hold on, time out. You just said you like this one the most. Yes, you said you ate it, you experienced it, and you said that one was your best experience of eating. That's the one. Number 4, you said that's your favorite. Yes. Then why are you saying the other one's the best? And so, like, to me, and again, this is still a philosophy, I guess, and I'm kind of working out. Because like I said, for my whole life, I've bought into this idea that, oh, what my favorite and what the best are two different things. I'm not so sure of that anymore. Because if movies are experiential events, and one movie gives me my favorite experience, gives me the best experience that I had at a movie that year, then that's what I think is the best movie that year. If a movie, and you know what I think it is? I think film fans are afraid of other people's judgment. I think movie fans are afraid of other people's judgment. I think that was part of my thing. I think I had been afraid of other people's judgments. Like, well, my favorite movie this year is this. Well, I'm going to get a lot of ridicule for saying that. Okay, but I mean, this other one that everybody else likes, that's the best one, though. I acknowledge that one's the best one. I think that comes out of a place of us, a fear of being ridiculed for what we think is the best. Like, again, I don't live and die. I'm not going to fall on the sword of this one. I am just kind of in the beginning stages of kind of evolving this own personal philosophy of mine about what is my favorite movie, what is my best movie. But again, I just liken it unto because movies, like food, they hit us all differently. No movie hits two individuals exactly the same way. Right? It's all art. They're experiential events. What kind of an experience is delivered? So just once again, if there were 5, bowls of mac and cheese, different brands, different types of mac and cheese, and you say, well, this one I thought tasted the best. This is my favorite. Well, then you wouldn't say one of the other ones was the best. That would be crazy. So anyway, that's just me. But again, this is all of our own individual movie loving journeys, man, just because I'm looking at it that way. And I may not even think the same way a year from now. So we'll see where we go. All right. Next one comes to us from Ahmed E, who writes, one of 2. Hey, Rob. Rob's not here today. I picked up the Damn Toys Godfather Vito formal figure, and it is amazing. Thank you for the recommendation. Nobody better to give you figure collectible recommendations than Robert Meyer Burnett. I picked up Superman Returns on Blu-ray to watch your documentary. Just finished watching it, and it was so beautiful and very well made. It shed so much light on all the hard work from all departments that worked on the film that was filmed in my hometown of Sydney. Just wanted to say thank you for that. Made me feel like I was a part of the whole process. Keep up the great work. Well, you know what, Ahmed, what I'm going to copy and paste what you just wrote there, and I'm going to send that in an email over to Robert tonight just so he can see that. And yeah, listen, one of the things I really appreciate about these documentaries and bonus features on Disc is that we get to see all the incredible majesty and magic work that these artists do to make a movie and how much work it actually takes. It's absolutely incredible. And quite frankly, I think Superman Returns is a little bit of an underrated film. I think it's a good movie that isn't a very good comic book movie. I've explained that several times. But again, Ahmed, I will send this off to Robert. Thank you for giving him those compliments. I'm sure he'll appreciate that. All right, next up. Andrew Fitzwater writes, I grew up with Percy Jackson books, and I couldn't be more excited about this casting news. Casting news, of course, Walker Scobell, who is Ryan Reynolds' co-star. He plays the younger version of Ryan Reynolds in The Adam Project. They, of course, earlier this week announced that he was going to be the new Percy Jackson in the upcoming Percy Jackson and the Olympians Disney Plus series. Scobell has potential to be a great Percy, and somehow it has me even more hyped for this project. Also, potential for a big hit show if they have the budget. Well, the budget won't be the determining factor. Whether it's quality writing and quality storytelling, that will determine if this is a big hit or not. You know, it's on Disney Plus. They're going to give it a decent budget at least. But it's going to come down to, is it a quality movie, quality story, quality character development? But I'll tell you what, man, them adding Walker Scobell was a big win. I loved his work in The Adam Project, and I think this kid's got a lot of talent. Let's see how this one turns out. All right, next up. Remember, Bulldog writes, just rewatched Avengers Endgame. It is fantastic. To me, this is my third favorite MCU movie behind Civil War and Winter Soldier. And the third act is the greatest final battle in comic book movie history. I don't know if I agree with that. Yeah, listen, Endgame is great. It's a great experience. If I'm going to be honest with you, though, it's not in my top 5 favorite MCU movies. Actually, if I'm going to be really honest, I don't. It definitely has some top 5 greatest moments in it, like the portal scene. Obviously, Cap getting Mjolnir. Obviously, great moment. To be quite honest with you, like, I remember a lot of people got mad at me when I came out and said, "Okay, so the first half of Endgame is mediocre. Second half is great, fantastic." And I stand by that to this day. I think the first half of Avengers Endgame is middle of the road MCU content. I think it's average, mediocre, you know. And I just, while it has a fantastic big battle at the end, I still prefer the airport battle scene because there's more story, there's more narrative going on in that scene than in this one. But it is fantastic. I mean, who doesn't get chills up and down their spines when the portals open and on your left happens, and or Cap is standing there strapping his broken shield on, standing against Thanos and his entire army, and he's ready to do battle with them all by himself. I mean, it's like some of the most iconic Hollywood imagery ever of all time, but it's just one scene. So don't get me wrong. I love Infinity War. I think Infinity War is better than Endgame overall. And I really love Endgame as well. But I don't know that either of them are top 5 for me. But that's just my opinion. That's just me. All right. Orange Grove 55 writes, for all the talk about how bad Chapek is, we all must remember this was Iger's hand selecting pick for the job, and promoted by Iger many times during his tenure. Does Iger not share some of the blame for the current situation? Absolutely. I've said that several times. But here's the thing. All you can do is make the best decision you can on paper. And sometimes it just won't work out. Like, listen, when they announced Bob Chapek, you'll remember me for the first 6 months, I'm like, this was the right choice. When you look at his resume and you look at his experience and he's been at the company for so long and blah, 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 this is the right choice. But just because something in theory looks like it's the right choice, it may not work out to be the right choice. To make a sports analogy, how many times has a team hired a coach where it looked like this is a no-brainer? Look at the resume of this coach and what they've done before and blah, 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 blah. It's a great hire. Okay, but then they bring them in and they go 3-15. You know, just because you make the best choice you can with the information you have in front of you, you don't have a crystal ball. All you can do is make the best decision you can. And at the time, Bob Iger, the board of Disney, and a lot of fans like myself thought that Chapek was the right choice. But it didn't work out. I also compare it to like poker. I'm a poker player, obviously, so I often compare it a lot. If you go all in pre-flop with pocket aces, it's only people who play poker will know what I mean by go all in pre-flop. What does that mean? But for those of you who play poker, you know what I mean. Going all in pre-flop, like if somebody shoves all in and you got pocket aces, the right decision is to call. You don't fold with pocket aces, you call. Now, you're not going to win 100% of the time. Pocket aces get cracked. That guy could have had king, queen, and then on the flop comes 9, 10, jack. That doesn't mean it was the wrong decision to call the all-in with pocket aces. You made the right decision, but it didn't work out. You make the best decision you can, hopefully putting yourself in as good of a position to succeed as you can. But after that, you just don't know what's going to happen. Bob Iger made the decision that he thought, as did the Disney board, that Bob Chapek was the right guy. But after they put him in that position, they didn't have control over him anymore. And the bad decision after bad decision after bad decision that he made, that's on Chapek. I mean, yeah, there's some responsibility that Iger and the board take for they're the one who picked him, but on paper, it looked like the right decision. So, it's not like they went out and hired me, right? If they had hired me to be the new CEO of Disney, then later on you can look and say, this Campea guy had no experience running a company like Disney. He clearly has no fashion sense. That. I mean, you could point to it and all that kind of stuff. But with Chapek, other than the fact that a lot of people didn't like the way he handled parks, he had been a loyal soldier to Disney. He had been there for a lot of years. He had worked in a lot of different departments. So for a CEO, that's a very attractive thing because it meant it was somebody who had some experience with a lot of different areas of the company. But hey, they called all in with pocket aces. And then their aces got cracked with Bob Chapek. So, you know what? It is what it is. All right. Next up, we've got, who is that? That was Orange Grove. Next, we've got Luke, who writes, anything is possible. I think Justin Bieber as Galactus will appear in Doctor Strange. But that's the funny thing about anything is possible, right? Anything is possible. Freaking listen, if Harry Styles can show up in the Eternals, Justin Bieber could end up being Galactus. Unlikely, yes, but possible, you never know. Okay, next up, we've got Mark Gomes, who writes, went to see Moonfall, Morbius, and Ambulance back-to-back into cinema last night. Now that would have been a more fitting punishment for Will Smith's Oscar escapades. Dude, listen, the worst doubleheader I ever did, it was me, John Schnepp, and Dennis Zen. And we decided to go see Jupiter Ascending back-to-back with, it's the Jeff Bridges movie, I think it's called Seventh Son. It was either called Seventh Son or Sixth Son. I can't remember, one of the two. Two terrible movies, especially Jupiter Ascending, like one of the worst things ever. So that just, Mark, you just brought back bad memories for me about that. All right, next up, Brad F. writes, hope everyone's having a good day. I've been thinking about how cool it would be to get a Midnight Suns team up in the MCU, starting with Doctor Strange, Daredevil, Moon Knight, and maybe John Bernthal could reprise his role as Punisher. What do you think the odds are? Rob and I talked about the other day. Honestly, I think it's pretty low. Now, some version of that, perhaps. That specific mixture, I personally think the odds on that are pretty low. But man, listen, this is the MCU with Kevin Feige. You never know what they could pull together. Thanks for that, Brad. Next up, Joe Big Happy Durame writes, hello, John and crew. I have a question. I don't know if you guys are religious or not, but I'm curious to know what story from the Bible you guys would like to see in a movie or remake. I think with today's CGI, the 10 Commandments would be a cool remake. Thank you. God bless you. 10 Commandments would be great. I mean, first of all, it's like one of the classic all-time Hollywood cinema movies ever. You do that today, I think it'd be pretty good. Now, listen, I just don't think there's an audience for it, unfortunately. Like, they made a pretty good Noah movie, right? With Russell Crowe. They made a pretty good Noah movie. And not so many people were excited about seeing it. So if you could do something like that again, but you'd have to do it with a modest budget. You couldn't do it for a Hollywood blockbuster kind of budget, like a $200 million movie, which if you really want to make it eye-poppingly spectacular, that's kind of what you'd have to do. But I just don't think there's an audience for it, so I'm not sure that they would do it. But if I had total control of a studio and I had the option to pick one, I agree with you. I think the 10 Commandments is the one that you do again. All right, thanks for that, Joe. Next up, Darth Grant writes, this was the second part of my question that I didn't get in on time. They treat the variant timeline as the actual multiverse, as established in What If, where they pull the other characters from? Again, unfortunately, Darth, I cannot, we literally had 70. In the last 3 days, we probably had about 150 different ones come in. I can't remember all of them, unfortunately. Let me see if I can piece this together. They treat the variant timelines as the actual multiverse, as established in What If. I don't think so. Where they pull these other characters from. Remember, this multiverse, according to the Ancient One, in Doctor Strange, multiverse has been around for a very, very, very long time. Unlike, say, what they talked about at the Time Variance Authority in Loki, it's like, oh, they prevent multiverse from happening. And if it does happen, they got to wipe it out immediately. So it's clearly something different. I'm not quite sure how they're going to address that in Doctor Strange. I'm sure they will, though, and probably make the distinction, and we'll see how it all turns out. All right. Sebastian Vasquez writes, greetings. This question is for John. I'm here. Did you once say in a show that you go to a seminary? If so, mind sharing? I do not go to seminary. I went to a Bible college and seminary. Back, obviously, many years ago, I went to a Bible college and seminary. At the time, it was called Ontario Bible College and Theological Seminary. It is now referred to as Tyndale University. They changed names. And I worked for a long time working with teenagers and youth. I was a youth pastor, stuff like that. I taught hermeneutics, and I taught some theology, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so that was what I did for a long time. That was all before I got into law and visual effects and stuff like that as well. All right. Thanks for asking, Sebastian. Next up, Tyler Rod writes, hey, John and Rob, just me today. My theory about Doctor Strange 2 is we will get a new Wanda at the end. I think our Wanda is going to die, and Wanda from another dimension will take over as a link to X-Men. This will reinvent her story arc in the MCU for many more films. It's not the worst idea, because our Wanda is clearly established. She is not Magneto's daughter. I mean, they made that pretty clear even in WandaVision, when Wanda finally got to see the truth of what happened to her as a young person. Her father was not Eric. Her father was not Magneto. And if you want a future where the X-Men are coming in and Magneto is her father, then you're going to need another thing. But again, to me, there's no consequences. Nothing's at stake, and there are no rules in multiverse, right? Wait a minute. You already said that this person did this when they were young. Okay. Let's just bring in another version of that person from another universe who say they have a different background story. Yay. Ultimate laziness in writing. So, but listen, your theory there, Tyler, isn't the worst one I've heard. I mean, that could be it. I mean, I personally like the other one we've been talking about recently instead, but that's not a terrible idea, Tyler. Let's see what happens with it. All right, next up, William Bangs writes, name change suggestion for the show: Cinematic Conversations with the Campea Crew. No. Number one, it's way too long. Number two, my two rules for the new name is it can't be specifically just about movies, and it cannot have my name in it. So that kind of breaks all three of those rules. Anyway, Cinematic Conversations with the Campea Crew. The adjective applies to more than just movies. Your whole name is not in it. Yeah, but it's definitely got my name in it. Campea is not in it. And hey, it's most alliterative. Also, movie club suggestion, The Empire Strikes Back. Oh, we will definitely be doing all the original trilogy of Star Wars. 100%, 1000%. Also, 1000%, we will never do any of the other ones. But the original, we will do Star Wars, we will do Empire, we will do the best of them all, Return of the Jedi. We will definitely do them all. Thanks for the suggestion, William. Next up, we've got Ethan H. who writes, hey, John and or Rob, just me. Been reminiscing a bit lately and wanted to share. In the early days of the MCU, I had a tradition where I'd binge all of the movies in a day or weekend before a new one came out in theaters. That is literally impossible these days. You're right. You literally cannot watch all of them in a weekend anymore. It just cannot be done. It is now mathematically impossible. But for the past few weeks, my wife and I have been working through by watching a movie or half a series a night in anticipation of Doctor Strange 2. We're up to Shang-Chi tonight. Nice. How amazing is it that we have such a wealth of goodness? I still remember Sam Jackson popping up at the end of Iron Man. I was in college then, dropping the word Avengers and losing my mind. Now, here we are 14 years later. It's still so weird to think that was 14 years ago. Here we are 14 years later. Wow. P.S. Shout out to Ethan Holgate, the other Ethan H fan. Well, first of all, you win at life that you have a wife, you have a partner who will watch all of these movies and shows with you building up to Doctor Strange 2. Big thumbs up, man. That's a keeper. Don't screw this up. On top of all that, it is crazy. Like now, when you think about the MCU, the amount of joy, happiness, the great experiences that we've had over the past 14 years of watching these movies and building upon the last and all that kind of stuff. It has been such an incredible ride, man. And I think you have a great tradition. Yeah, it is unfortunate you can't do it in a day or a weekend anymore, and you got to build up to it a lot. Hopefully you won't do it again for Thor, because it's pretty time consuming if you take like that much time to watch all of the MCU stuff again before Doctor Strange, and you got to start it again in just a couple of weeks to get ready for Thor. But still, a great tradition nonetheless, Ethan. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that, and thanks for sharing what you guys do. That's awesome. All right, next up, we have Alex Bernardini. Alex Bernardini, I hope I'm getting that right. And he writes, guys, you forgot a certain member of the Illuminati, Black Panther. No, we discussed Black Panther a couple of times. I think this will be a variant played by Denzel or another big name. Also, Boulder the Brave, we see a statue in the Illuminati building that looks like him. I don't recall that. Let's go to the Black Panther thing. Again, I think the best chances here are, and the most likely scenario is, because I believe all of this Illuminati are going to be from different places in the multiverse. Like, obviously, Patrick Stewart's Professor X is not from our universe, clearly. So I think we're going to see a Black Panther, and it's going to be, again, a different universe's non-genocidal maniac Killmonger. Michael B. Jordan. I think we're going to see Michael B. Jordan as Black Panther in one of those thrones. But again, it's not going to be one of the murderous psychopaths. It's going to be like, in that universe, he's a good guy, right? So that's my guess at anyway, Alex. Let's see if that turns out or not. Sam Weiser Gamgee writes, hey guys, if you're planning on staying with the 4-person format on your show, and I hope you do, my idea for the show's name is Quadratainment. No. Thanks, and as always, bring on the filthy. And really, we're a 3-person panel. Like, really, the panel is me, Rob, and Chris. You'll notice that most of the main topics, not all of them, but most of them, we don't go over to Ray. Ray is not a film pundit, right? Ray is here because he's got one of the most awesome, energetic, funny personalities out of anybody I know. And he kind of represents the average film fan. Ray's main job on the show is to interact with the live chat. That's his number one job for the show. But then also we like to go over to him and get his opinion now and again here and there. So technically speaking, it really is a 3-person panel. That being said, I don't think Quadratainment is probably not a name we would use, but thanks for throwing in the suggestion, Samwise. All right, Colby P. writes, hey, John and or Rob, just me today. I just wanted to throw my idea for a new name in the ring. More new name ideas. Given the wide range of talent on the show, I think you should call it the cast and crew. Thanks, and bring on the filthy. The reason I don't like that name, and by the way, I haven't come up with any good names myself, but the reason I'm not buying that name is because that literally could apply to anything, anywhere. Cast and crew of anything, right? So it's a little too generic, I think. Like, I don't want anything as specific as my name, but I think cast and crew, that can literally be applied to any production, anywhere, anytime. So I'm going to go no on that one, but thank you for giving me ideas, though. All right. Slick Saturn writes, hello. What are the odds that the Jane, Lady Thor, we see in Love and Thunder will be a variant or displaced variant of the Jane from the first 2 Thor films? 0. Love the show and stay rad. Also, new show name idea. Everyone wants to give me a new show name idea. The Fame or the Cinema Circuit, or The Frame. The Frame's one of the best ideas I've heard so far. That's not bad. The Cinema Circuit or the Cinema Current. No, again, cinema's too specific to just movies. We also do a lot of TV and streaming. So it can't that, but The Frame. The Frame. That's not bad. I'm not saying we're going to go with that, but that's not bad. Let me file that one away, Slick Saturn. I like that one. All right. Next up, we got Francis, who writes, my theory about Multiverse of Madness. I think that the movie ends with certain characters being displaced across the multiverse. This may explain the presence of Lady Thor, the end credits scene in Morbius, and possibly the disappearance of Black Panther. No, all three of those things have already kind of been addressed. We know that this is the Jane from our universe who is going to be getting the reassembled Mjolnir that gives her the powers of the mighty Thor. That's kind of already been written on the game box. So that's already been explained. Morbius, MCU is going to ignore Morbius. Just take that to the bank. Disappearance of Black Panther, Kevin Feige's already said Black Panther dies. T'Challa dies. I think that's a mistake, but that's the decision they've gone with. So, yeah, again, I think, and I don't know this, it could be 1,000% wrong. There's certain things I know about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, but there's a lot that I don't. And I don't know how it ends. So my guess, and it's only a guess, my guess is that it ends with Doctor Strange sealing off the multiverse, like ending the threat of the multiverse. At least that's my guess. Could be wrong. I won't be terribly surprised if I'm wrong, but we'll find out. All right. Next up, Zombie Plants writes, hey gang, came to your show through Rob as I am also a Star Trek fan. I've got COVID. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, dude. Glad I found your podcast for a distraction. A name for your new show, John, Abstract Media. That sounds more like the name of a company than a show. Anyway, good luck, Rob, with your new home. Rob, of course, is moving into his new place. Take care, everyone. Wish you the very best. Thanks. Well, thank you for sending that in. Yeah, see, Abstract Media sounds more like the name of a company than the name of a show. Like the name of my company, just so you know, for those of you who don't know, the name of my company that kind of oversees everything we do on YouTube and oversees like the movie projects that we do and different things like that is called Carson Drive Media. That's the name of my company. So I think it would be weird to have my company called Carson Drive Media and then name a show Abstract Media. Again, that doesn't feel very descriptive for what it is we do and who we are, and sounds more like the name of a company. But anyway, Zombie Plants, thank you for throwing out the suggestion, and I will pass on your well wishes. I will pass on your well wishes to Rob as well. All right, next up, we've got Baldi, who writes, regarding the discussion you guys had on Wednesday about physical media, I wanted to point something out. I live in a rural part of Oklahoma. I'm guessing, I gotta forgive me, I'm not American, so I'm guessing OK is Oklahoma, where it's common to lose internet frequently. So I always invest in physical media because you never know when you'll need it. Well, listen, I think people often misunderstand when I talk about the fact that physical media is dead. I'm not saying there aren't I'm not saying it should be dead. I'm not saying physical media is so stupid. Good riddance. I'm glad it's gone. I'm not saying that at all. There are definitely some advantages, although I contend the advantages do not outweigh the disadvantages. But there are definitely several advantages to physical media. I'm not saying there isn't. What I'm often referring to is just the fact that, like it or not, even if there are some good reasons to have it or not, physical media is dying. I mean, Rob says it all the time. Physical media is dying. All the biggest names of the players of physical media no longer make it. The market share drops by about 25% a year. He said on the show the other day that studios don't even care about physical media anymore. I mean, so again, we're not saying that, yeah, here's all the reason why you should get rid of physical media. No, there are advantages to physical media. No doubt. We're just saying that regardless of if there are some pros to it, it is still a dying thing. It's going to be gone sooner rather than later. So yes, but see, I would propose, let's, for an example, I don't know, let me pick out a movie that I like and isn't that bad. What would a good movie, let me just look up a random movie. Hold on a second. Okay, the random movie I came up with is A Star is Born with Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga, right? It's a great movie. If I was somebody who bought physical media, and I'm not, but if I was, I probably would have bought that movie. It's a really good movie, nominated for Best Picture. It won 1 or 2 Academy Awards, can't remember how many. It's a really great movie. I probably would have bought it. But here's the reality. Here's the truth. The truth is I probably would have had to drop like $25 on it. And then it would have gone on a shelf where it takes up space and collect dust. That's the reality. Maybe once in the 4 years since that movie came out, I might have taken it off the shelf to play it, but I literally would have had to invest $25 in it and then have it take up space in my home and collect dust. And that's it. As a matter, I was talking to Rob about this the other day, and I asked him, I said, how many physical media discs do you think you had? And I can't remember the exact number he told me, but it's in the thousands. And then I asked him, okay, now, in a given year, how many of those do you randomly pull out on a given night and just pop one in and watch? And he says, not often. And like, that's just the thing. So yeah, they're there. Great. They're there. But again, listen, it's all about what's a priority to you. So like, I became a cord cutter and I weaned myself off physical media many, 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 many years ago. And I have never once felt any inconvenience from it. As a matter of fact, it's always made it easier. I've probably moved 4 times in the last maybe 10 years, 4 or 5 times in the last 10 years. Haven't had to move a single disc. You know why? Because wherever I go, my movie collection goes with me. It's all there. I can just access it on my phone, on my tablet, on my laptop, my computer, my television, wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, I can access. It's right there. It's not collecting dust. It's just sitting there in the ether, and I can pull on it anytime I want. But John, what happens if one time a year your internet goes out right when you feel like watching a movie? Well, okay, then I'll have to, well, you know what then I do then? I would turn on the hotspot on my phone and connect my TV to my phone, to my phone's Wi-Fi internet. I have done this, and then just watch it that way. It is the way it is. There are other advantages for sure, and this discussion can be had a million times, but that's why I personally kind of weaned myself off physical media a long time ago. I'm not saying there aren't advantages. There are. There absolutely are advantages to having physical media, but I'm saying for me, none of those advantages would apply. So that's just my take on that. But again, I'm not saying they should get rid of physical media. I'm just saying it is dying. Not that it should be dying. It just is dying. All right. Next up, Chuck the Mystery writes, hey, John or Robin, it's just me. One of two. Why do you think Godfather 3 is so disliked? Sure, it's nowhere near the quality of the first two. And Sofia Coppola turns in a weak performance, saying the least. But there are amazing scenes in that film. The helicopter hit at the meeting, confessions by Michael, the iconic line, every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. I've seen a lot of truly bad third films and trilogies, but personally, I've never thought that this was one of them. Thoughts? Thanks. And I can't wait for a movie club on part 2. And we will do a movie club on Godfather Part 2 someday. Listen, Rob and I both constantly make the case that The Godfather 3 is a great film. It's just nowhere near as good as Godfather 1 and 2. And I think almost everybody agrees on that. It's nowhere near as good as Part 1 and Part 2. But Part 1 and Part 2 are arguably 2 of the 2 best movies ever made. 2 of the 5 best movies. Whatever your ranking is. A lot of cinephiles will have Godfather 1 and Godfather 2 probably in their top 10 of the greatest films of all time. Godfather 3 is not that. But it was nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. And it is a great movie in and of itself, but it's just not in the same league. And I think my theory, and it's just a theory, my theory that the reason it gets so much hate is because it truly is significantly less good than the original 2. You know, you compare The Godfather The Godfather Part 3 to a lot of great movies, it'll compare very well. Compared to Godfather 1 and 2, the movie's in its own family, doesn't compare so well, and therefore it gets a lot of ire. But I agree with you, Rob and I both agree with you, that we think The Godfather 3 is actually a great movie. It's just not anywhere near as good as the first 2. All right, next up. We've got Chuck the Mystery also writes, have you seen The Outfit yet? No, that's the one with Mark Rylance, right? My God, I love the film. It very well might be my favorite Mark Rylance performance of all time. And I love movies that all take place in one location. This one is very high recommendation, and I'd love your thoughts on it. No, I got turned on to go see it, and then it wasn't playing around me anywhere at the time. So I'm sure maybe it's on streaming at some place somewhere right now. I'll have to check it out because I really like Mark Rylance. I also love single location movies like That one Tom Hardy movie. I keep forgetting about the name of that one. The Ryan Reynolds movie, Buried. I mean, it's not literally one location, but 95% of Oscar with Sylvester Stallone is one location. Love that. I mean, I love these kinds of movies as well, so I got to check it out at some point. All right, next up, we comes from Kyle Starr, who writes, why was Ant-Man in the New York scene musical at the end credit scene for Hawkeye? He's also in the beginning of the movie. Also, did you see the Victor Von Doom boxes in the car scene? Those aren't Victor Von Doom boxes. I mean, I've looked at it 1,000 times. I don't know how anybody sees Victor Von Doom in that. Those aren't Victor Von Doom boxes. And anyway, yeah, if you remember at the beginning of Hawkeye, Ant-Man is in the play as well. Because remember, Hawkeye turns to his daughter and says, that guy wasn't even there. Talking about Ant-Man. Somebody, it might have been you, wrote that in at the show earlier today as well. So that's kind of my take on that. All right. Raiden X writes, for Mailbag, could Layla's father have been on one of the let me try this again. Could Layla's father have been one of the archaeologists that Mark supposedly shot in the back of the head, like the cops mentioned in episode 2? The lady at the start of episode 3 did mention Layla's father was an archaeologist and had dig sites. Here's the thing. It goes further than that. Later on in episode 3, I can't remember who says it to Mark, but it might have been Arthur that says it. He goes, pretty soon Layla's going to know the truth about you, and then she'll see you the way you see yourself, as a monster, right? So I think the implied message there, Raiden X, is that maybe Mark or a third personality, whatever, might have been the one responsible for killing her father. Somebody else wrote that in today. I think there's a good chance of that, so we will see. That'll be horrible if that's the case. All right, Benny S. writes, one of two. I have a Moon Knight theory. I believe the promo material has shown us the third personality we've speculated about. In the image of Moon Knight, Mr. Knight and Mark. What if that isn't Mark? What if it's the third personality, Jake Lockley, who is just a certified savage with no Khonshu powers? Maybe that's how Khonshu gets rescued by Jake and returns Mark and Steven in their powers. Just a thought. Well, Rob was addressing the whole Jake Lockley thing, and look, there's clearly a third personality. Rob seems hesitant about it being Jake Lockley, although because that's just not how he is in the comics. But this is the show. The show is not the comics. The show already takes lots of liberties. And if I understand Rob right, like Steven and Mark don't have powers of Khonshu either, right? But in the show they do. Obviously, whatever the third personality probably does as well, whoever and whatever the third personality is. Whether or not that's Jake, Benny, we'll have to find out. There are only 3 episodes left, which is absolutely crazy to me. I hate this 6-episode bullshit. That's not a real season. Come on, Disney. Do better. Do better. This is garbage. I mean, I'm loving this series so far, but just 6 episodes? Do better writing. Write a better story. I just, again, 6 episodes is not a season. 6 episodes is just not a season. Anyway, all right. Enrique writes, hello, new follower here. Well, thank you, Enrique. Good to have you here, man. Just wanted to thank John for hyping up Everything Everywhere. The movie was not even on my radar. After watching it, it is easily my #1 movie of the year after The Batman. I ended convincing all my friends to go watch it. I am so glad, Enrique, that you did. And it was only mildly on my radar because I saw the trailer and I thought the trailer was great. But I really didn't know much about the movie or anything. It's like, oh, well, that looks great. That trailer's fantastic. Yeah, I got to go see it. Let's go see it. It is my #1 film of the year so far. Even more than The Batman. And you guys know how much I love the Batman movie. But I like Everything Everywhere All at Once even more. And they only made it for like by a lot of big movie standards, tiny budget. Like $25 million they made this thing for. Whereas most of these movies are now made for $75 million, $150 million, $200 million. Everything All at Once, Everything Everywhere All at Once made for $25 million bucks, if I remember it correctly. And awesome movie. I laughed, I cried, was excited, it was fun. It's just all these different things, and a lot of people are crying at the end. I mean, it's just crazy good. I'm glad you saw it, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And thanks for being a new follower of the show, Enrique. Appreciate that, man. All right. The Meyer Cat writes, also saying, I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once last night. 30 minutes in, I was so exhausted from laughing so much. I laughed in a numb state the following hour and a half. I mean, that's the thing. It was crazy to me. how many laughs were in it. Like, it's deep, and it's ultimately at the heart of it's a story about a mother and a daughter, and it's got great emotion. Like I said, a lot of people crying at the end as well. But I was laughing hysterically through a lot of it at the same time. Even right at the beginning before the bonkers stuff starts to happen, I was laughing hysterically. I thought it was great. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Meyer Cat. All right, next up. War Doctor 10 writes, "Hey, John and crew. Thoughts on Robbie Amell returning to The Flash as Ronnie Raymond as Ronnie Raymond, but as the villain Deathstorm. Returning to The Flash as Ronnie Raymond, but as the villain Deathstorm." Well, I mean, can I be honest? And I know this is going to sound bad, War Doctor. I don't care. Don't get me wrong. I like Robbie Amell. I do. He's got what's that show on Amazon he has where after he dies, he's uploaded to a server and he lives in that digital world now? I can't remember. My wife really likes the show, whatever the name of it is. Obviously, he's the cousin of Stephen Amell, the guy who played Arrow. I like him, but I just don't care about Flash anymore. I really don't care. I tapped out on that show, I think around the end of season 7. Maybe it was the end of season. No, it was the end of season 7. I tapped out on it. And yeah, just my thoughts on Robbie Amell returning to Flash, don't care. I mean, again, I'm not trying to be dismissive. I'm being honest with you. Like, you send in a question, you take the time to honor me by writing in a question. I owe you the honor of being completely honest with you. To be completely honest, I tapped out on that show a while ago because I just don't care about it. I lost all interest. I will always remember the Flash fondly. I think overall it has been a very, very good show. But it ran out of steam a long time ago. And at this point, I just don't care. But anyway, thanks for writing in, War Doctor. Appreciate that. All right. Scott Brown writes, "Not sure what Warner Brothers is doing with this Blue Beetle movie, casting George Lopez, who can't act, and casting Sharon Stone, age 64, who hasn't had major acting credits since 2004 in Catwoman. But Sharon Stone is a great actress. She's a powerhouse actress. She's an icon in the business. Sharon Stone being cast in this movie is kind of a coup and brings a lot of gravitas to it. So, yeah. At 64, who hasn't had major credits in 2004 in Catwoman, and Susan Sarandon, who is an Academy-level actress, by the way. Susan Sarandon, age 75, as villains. This is Morbius written all over it. Scott, listen, brother, I got to say, with all the love in my heart, you don't know the first thing about the script of this movie, right? Neither do I. You and I don't know the first thing about the script of this movie. If they cast those characters, that means the screenplay is calling for somebody that they will fill those roles out well with. Sharon Stone is an icon in this business. Susan Sarandon is an icon in this business. And by the way, it's not Sony that cast them. It's the director and the casting director, the director and the casting director, whatever. They are the ones who choose the cast that they're going with here. And I find, frankly, my film-loving brother, Scott Brown, and I say that with all the love in my heart, I find it kind of disrespectful you bashing on Sharon Stone and Susan Sarandon. I mean, these are Hollywood icons. And if it's like saying, oh, Helen Mirren, what is she? Well, Helen Mirren's one of the greatest actresses on the planet. You don't go around bashing movies for casting Helen Mirren, right? I mean, anyway, that's just my take on it. Let's see what happens with it. This is casting. You have no idea. You have no idea. You haven't read the script. If you read the script, you might go, oh my God, you would be perfect for that role. Freaking Sharon Stone would probably be perfect for that role. But you haven't read the script. Neither have I. So all we can do is say, did they get talented people? Now, George Lopez, I don't have an opinion on one way or the other, to be frank with you. But Sharon Stone is loaded with talent. Susan Sarandon is loaded with talent. So if they got them, they must be good fits for the role. We'll see if it turns out good or not. Could be a disaster. Could be the greatest comic book movie of all time. We won't know till we see it. But that's just kind of my take on it. All right. Next up, David Bryant writes, hey, gang. Wanted to say hi. Well, thank you for saying hi. Y'all are awesome, and I first found y'all's Arcane review. Arcane, loved it. Didn't think it was going to be any good. I didn't have any interest in it. Is now my absolute number one favorite animated series of all time. Yes, that includes my beloved Transformers. Yes, that includes Avatar: The Last Airbender. Yes, that includes my beloved space battleship Yamato, also known as Star Blazers. Arcane is the greatest animated show of all time, period, and stop, in my opinion. All right, anyway, and I thought it was amazing. Loved y'all ever since, and I just wanted to say that, and sorry about your wrong finals prediction, John. Let's go Heat. The Heat ain't doing nothing. Heat ain't doing nothing. I mean, I hope well for you. I really do. The Toronto Raptors aren't going to do much. Those are the guys I'd primarily be cheering for. And where I live, the Lakers didn't even get in. So good luck to the Heat, but honestly, I think this is going to be the Phoenix Suns year. We'll find out, David. We'll find out. All right, next up. John Martin writes, one of two. Hey, John and crew. Just John for Mailbag. Y'all were talking about the Flash show coming to an end with a shortened season. I think it's probably time, but I think it's an insult to the show. I think it's an insult to the show that they are cutting the season short, but gave Supergirl a full 20-episode finale. How in the world does The Flash only get an 8 to 10 episode finale when Supergirl, the jobber of Superman, deserves 20 episodes to conclude the series? Granted, Flash had a longer run, but it still annoys me. John, listen, brother, come on. Come on, you're smarter than this. First of all, how many seasons did Supergirl go? I'm not sure. I didn't watch Supergirl, but it wasn't many. Let me look it up. Okay, Supergirl had 6 seasons, which is still pretty good. That's not bad. So you're literally talking about The Flash already has had 2 full seasons more than Supergirl did. That probably means Flash probably had around 30 to 35 more episodes of Supergirl already. It's already had 30 to 35 more episodes than Supergirl had. And it's going to probably get 10 more. So when it's all said and done, it's going to end up with like 45 minimum. 45 more episodes than Supergirl ever got. 45 more episodes. That's almost, if you were watching a brand new episode of The Flash every week, that's almost a full year of more episodes with new episodes every single week than Supergirl. So back, just step back with this whole, it's disrespectful to Flash. How come Flash when Supergirl's going to end up with like 45 less episodes? All right, that's number one. Number two, a TV show deserves nothing. Let's be clear about that. A TV show deserves nothing. This is a business. And if CW is just thinking, listen, we're throwing money away here. Nobody watches The Flash anymore. We just went over the ratings. Remember on the John Campea Show a little while ago? We went over the ratings. The Flash gets like 500,000 people watching it. There's a show I watch on NBC called Chicago PD, right? I'm the only person I know who watches it, all right? I'm sure some of you do, but I am the only, without any exaggeration, no hyperbole, I am the only person I know that watches Chicago PD. But that show gets 3.5 million viewers per episode. 3.5 million. It's literally 6 times more than 7 times more. That is literally 7 times more than what The Flash gets in viewership these days. So don't talk about respect because the show does not deserve respect. No show deserves respect. It deserves what it earns. This is a show that gets like around 500,000 viewers an episode when something like Chicago PD gets 3.5 million viewers per episode. This show, I will go so far as to say this show does not deserve a 9th season at all. This is a show that, in my opinion, should have ended after season 7. Really, probably should have ended after season 6. But some good stuff about season 7. I was okay with season 7, but it run out of steam a long time ago. This is a show that shouldn't even still be on the air today. You no longer have Cisco. Iris may not even be back. Jesse L. Martin isn't coming back. Wells isn't there. I mean, this is a show that has been running on fumes for a long time. I would suggest, John, my recommendation, my film loving brother, my film and TV loving brother, I would suggest that what you should be saying is thank you. If you are a fan of the CW Flash show, instead of saying disrespect, it deserves, instead of saying that, what you should be saying is, my God, CW and Warner Brothers, thank you for letting the show last this long when it really died and has been on life support for a year and a half, 2 years now. Nobody watches it. Nobody cares about it anymore. Obviously, that's hyperbole, but I'm just saying. Nobody watches it. It's got horrible, horrible ratings, and yet it's still going to get another half season? Again, I think the words you were looking for, my film loving brother, is thank you, CW, not how dare you disrespect. And then you're comparing it to Supergirl when it, at the end of the day, is going to literally have like 45 more episodes than Supergirl ever had. So now listen, I am giving you a hard time. Okay, I'm not trying to bash on you, John. I'm giving you a hard time because we are film and TV love. We're brothers in this, right? We're all fans, but let me jab you a little bit in the ribs here and say, I think, again, the words you should be looking for to CW and Warner Brothers about a half season 9 is thank you, because the show doesn't deserve it. By its ratings, as Rob always says, this ain't show friends, it's show business. And by business standards and by ratings, Flash does not even deserve another half season. It should be done. So again, you should be saying thank you. All right. Anyway, let's keep going here. Next up, we got Alvaro, who writes, love the discussion of if movies should have recaps. I wouldn't like that in a theater, but I love the Legends episode on Disney Plus before Marvel shows. It helped remember where characters have been through the MCU. What if they did a recap for movies on Disney Plus? Again, somebody else brought up Alvaro earlier today, the idea about Marvel Legends on Disney Plus. The problem is nobody watches those. They're buried away. And frankly, to me, I don't even think they're made all that well. It really is just some college kid, high school kid said, grab a couple scenes from things, slap them together and just play it. Like, there are so many better ways they could do it than what they're doing. And then they just get buried in Disney Plus. And I don't think most people know it's there, to be honest. So I'm not a big fan. I watched like the first two. I watched the one about WandaVision, and then I watched the one about, I think I saw the one about Black Widow. And I tapped out. It's like, these are just boring. Like, they're not interesting at all, at least to me. Maybe some of you guys find it very useful. To me, I found it just boring and badly done. Lazy, to be honest. I thought it was just really lazy. I think there are a lot better ways. And it doesn't have to be Michael Peña's Luis doing it, but I just think there's probably much, much better ways to do it in general. All right, next up. Garden Variety Vagabond writes, 1 of 4. Okay, 4. John, on the 800-hour shot for Top Gun 2, I think that context is very important. JP-8 jet fuel for multiple military jets is extremely expensive, $2,000 per hour. This makes shooting costs as minuscule by comparison. No, $2,000 an hour? That's budget. That's tiny, minuscule budget. For movie real production budgets. Anyway, also, time is important for air coordination and military coordination. If multiple planes are flying, they need as much camera footage as possible per hour. Let's say that they have 6 birds in the air with 12 actors, and they would probably have 2 or 3 cameras on each while they fly. So that would be 36 hours of footage per hour of flight time. They could now, first of all, Garden Variety, I just want to point out, you are making up these numbers, right? Nobody said they had 3 cameras per cockpit with 6 planes in the air at once, and all 6 of them had 3 cameras in them at one time. Like, these are numbers you're just making up. That was not confirmed by Tom Cruise, by Krasinski, or not Krasinski. Why am I freezing on the name of the director? Kozinski? I'm freezing on the name of the director. I totally know who the director is, and I'm totally freezing. I see his face in my head. Anyway, none of them said any of that, right? None of them said any of that. And you're also leaving out a part where the director pointed out that they don't have these planes for that long. They literally only had them for 20 to 30 minutes at a time. Right? Like, you're leaving that part out. Anyway, let's keep going here. So that would be 36 hours of footage per hour of flight time in a fictional made-up scenario that you're creating. They could use the camera shots from others at any point in the film, add the ground camera from multiple angles during that flight time, and probably cameras on drones or other aircraft. Most of that film is not used, obviously, but the editors will need all they can get. You do not do reshoots with flight shots. You totally can. 1 hour of flight is tons of hours of footage in this case. Okay, so I want to point out a couple of fallacies with that. Number one, as the director pointed out, 800 hours of footage is more than all of the Lord of the Rings films combined. It's the most in film history shot, right? You're assuming that no movie ever has used multiple angles with multiple camera shots and all that kind of stuff. It still doesn't come up to a fraction of it. It still doesn't come to a fraction of it. And actually, you know what? Give me a second. Let me pull up the actual quote from the director about the amount of time that they spent. And actually, this wasn't from the director. This was from Tom Cruise himself, who said, I had to teach them how to turn the camera on and off and about camera angles and lenses. We didn't have unlimited time in these jets. If we were going up for just 20 to 30 minutes, I had to make sure that we got what we needed. So it's like they had unlimited flight time in the jets. And again, it all comes back to, you need to know on any movie set, it doesn't matter if you're a $1 million movie or a $200 million movie, you need to know exactly what shots you need, exactly how you're going to go about getting those shots. And then the reason storyboards exist is for that specific reason. The reason storyboards exist is so that when you get to set and you're actually filming, because that's when the money starts having to be paid, right? You already know what your camera angles are. You know what shots you're supposed to have, so you can do it, shoot it, strike it, and move on quickly and efficiently, right? So they should have gone into this knowing exactly, these are the shots. This shot's going to have this plane coming in here. Then we're going to cut to a camera angle of this, and we're going to have this. Then we're going to cut to an angle of that. Then we're going to go interior cockpit of this pilot. Then we're going to do and you get that all planned out, and then you go up and you shoot that. You don't go up and shoot 100 hours of, well, let's just fool around and see what we come up with. And I'm sure the results are going to be great, because like I said, I've seen 15 minutes of this movie and it looks spectacular. And I cannot wait to watch it in a couple of weeks at CinemaCon. But there should have been, I now understand why Paramount is so pissed and why they're kind of pulling back the purse strings for what Tom Cruise wants to do on the next Mission Impossible. Because it's like, listen, the way you guys conducted yourself on Top Gun, that just burned us for money. You just burned through our money like crazy, irresponsibly. And so, yeah, I mean, I've had a few people saying, you don't understand, John. It's like, wait, no, I do understand. But 800 hours of footage, all that tells me is that you didn't do the prep work first to properly come up with knowing what it is you needed and then going out and getting it. It shouldn't have taken that long. It just should not have taken that long. But anyway, I say that as a big pro Tom Cruise guy. I'm a big Tom Cruise fan. I cannot wait for Top Gun. I'm super excited about it. I think it's going to be awesome. But yeah, I still got to call it like I see it. And I think that was just irresponsible of them burning through somebody else's money unnecessarily. But it is what it is. All right. Next up, we've got Garden Variety Vagabond, who writes, John, you all discussed Sabrina on Thursday. We did. I love that movie, Sabrina. To me, it's a good example of a remake that's better than the original. It is a rare case when the 1954 original and the 1995 remake were both equally outstanding. Bogart, Audrey Hepburn, and William Holden versus Harrison Ford, Julia Ormond, and Greg Kinnear. Everyone should watch both. Yeah, listen, I like the Bogart, Audrey Hepburn one. Totally do. It's delightful. I actually think the remake is much better. I like, for me, and you know what the big difference to me is? I love Greg Kinnear, I love Harrison Ford, but Julia Ormond, there's a spirit about her in that movie that just totally redefines the whole story. Listen, I'm not saying Julia Ormond's as good as Audrey Hepburn, but I'm going to say in this specific circumstance, I prefer Julia Ormond's portrayal than Audrey Hepburn's. Again, I'm not saying Julia Ormond is better than Audrey Hepburn. I'm just saying in this one specific circumstance, I actually prefer Julia Ormond a little bit. All right, next up, Dookie Shoes writes, fun fact, Bast the Panther god is Khonshu's sister, and you can see her statue when they walk into the pyramid. Can you? I'll have to go back in and take a look at that. I mean, if anybody's going to know about that, it's Robert Meyer Burnett. But I'll have to go in and take a look to see if you can actually see that statue. Are you sure you're not just thinking it could be Bast statue? Because Bast is not an Egyptian god. I don't know why they'd have non-Egyptian gods unless it's just like an Easter egg or something like that. It's interesting. I will keep my eyes open for that next time, man. All right. And finally, anonymous viewer writes, it's quote unquote, the endless summertime. I love these two movies so much. I honestly don't know which movies we're talking about. I watch them every spring. Where I live, it's cold and snowy in the winter months and warm when the summer comes. Hold on a second. Let me just look this up. All I could find was a surfing documentary from the 60s. I'm going to be straight up with you. I'm not familiar with it. I'm not familiar with it at all. But it looks kind of fun. And literally, as I'm doing this right now, Anne is watching a Tony Hawk documentary, because she was totally into skateboarding when she was in high school. So she's watching this Tony Hawk. So this kind of looks like it would be in that vein, but I honestly don't know much about it. But thanks for writing that in, Anonymous. All right, guys. That will do it for this installment of Mailbag. Thank you, everybody, for being here and making this show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those comments and questions and everything via the tip link. Because number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about. And number two, you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us involved with the John Campea Show, thank you guys so much for your support. Don't forget to join us again tomorrow for the next episode of the John Campea Show. Make sure you click the thumbs up button, leave a comment, share the videos around, do whatever you guys need to do to help our channel grow. We certainly appreciate your efforts as well. All right, guys, that'll do it for me. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.